Hey guys, today we're going to be changing the in-tank fuel filter on this KTM 500 EXC. This is a 2015 model, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be very similar for a lot of the fuel injected KTMs. Very easy job, no special tools required. We'll give this a 3 MZs out of 10. Okay, so the tools we're going to need today are a 6mm socket. You'll need an 8mm socket. A small flat blade screwdriver comes in handy. A 13mm spanner, 17mm spanner, a larger flat blade screwdriver, a pair of needle nose pliers, some zip ties. If this is your first time changing the filter, you'll need some side cutters and a couple of 8mm hose clamps, and obviously a new filter. We're using the OEM KL97 filter. You'll need a few rags and some parts cleaner as well, and also a container to put the fuel out of your tank into. Okay, so firstly we'll take off the seat and the breather hose for your fuel tank, and you want to grab your plugs for the quick disconnect on your fuel line. Unplug that, and it's always a good idea to put the plugs in so you don't get any crap inside the fuel line. Then you want to remove the electrical connection for the fuel pump from the top there. Just tuck it out the way somewhere. Then you've got your 3 8mm bolts to remove the actual tank itself. So you've got the one on the top there, and then you've got one on each side and the front of the radiators there. When you pop these out, you may find a washer goes flying out like just happened to me, so make sure you collect that off the floor so you can put it back when you're finished, and then just remove the tank. It's as simple as that. Then don't do what I do, use a funnel to pour the fuel into your jerry can. Then you want to take your 17mm, remove the larger bung from the bottom of the fuel tank. Then with your 13mm, remove the fuel line, making sure you don't lose any of the O-rings. Then with the 6mm, you can remove the 4 screws that hold the top part of the fuel pump to the top of the tank there. With that free, you should be able to wrangle the pump out of the tank through that opening. And then you can put the tank aside, and we'll just be working on the pump. If your filter's never been changed before, you may still have the crimp type hose clamps on there, which you'll need to cut off with side cutters and replace with these screw type stainless hose clamps. Alright, so once you've removed the clamps, obviously you want to go ahead and remove the filter. It can be quite difficult to get out. Those hoses are pretty tight, but a bit of twisting back and forth should get it. So I actually decided to cut the filter open and just have a look inside, and you can see how dirty it actually is in there. A lot of that crap there is from where I hacksawed the top off of it, but you can still see just how dirty it is inside there. Now there's a screen inside the pump as well. If you bought the filter kit from KTM, you'll have a replacement screen. I don't find that the screen seems to wear out at all, so I just give mine a quick clean and then put it back in. Now getting the pump apart, it can be a bit tricky. I've found the best way is to use a couple of zip ties to hold those tabs in on one side, then you can push the tabs on the other side in and get it out that way. And then you can just pull the cover off the pump and remove that screen off the bottom. As I said, if you're replacing it, do that. If not, give it a quick clean. And then you can pop that back on and reassemble the pump again. Just a quick tip for you guys too. I don't know how many of you guys are like me and try to avoid paying KTM prices for parts, but if you look up this fuel filter on the KTM parts list, you'll see, I'm not sure about in other countries, but here in Australia it's about $115. Now you do get the screen for inside the pump as well, but as I said, you don't really need to replace that. So yeah, $115 is just ridiculous as far as I'm concerned now. Saving a buck is the bottom line here. So if your in-tank fuel filter looks anything like mine, it's probably the Marley KL97. If you jump onto eBay, guys, here in Australia they cost about 30 bucks to buy, and that's still a bloody rip-off, but it's certainly better than 115. Now, while I'm waiting for Postman Pat to deliver my eBay filter, I'm going to have a quick look at this inline filter. Now, this little guy is your last line of defense between dirt and your fuel injector, so you want to make sure it's there and it's in good nick, and it's not clogged up, because if it clogs up, your bike stops. Now, I'm not really sure of the best way to get this guy out, but I just use this little hook, this little angled hook thing. You got to be careful you don't put a hole in the filter, but it sort of clips in there and you can pop it out. I think these things even cost about $5 from KTM, but again, they don't need replacing all the time. If you give it a good clean, make sure it's not damaged, it should be right to just throw it back in. But yeah, definitely worth checking them now and then, make sure there's no crap in there. Righto, so the new filter has arrived. That's what they're meant to look like compared to the old one. The guy I bought off on eBay supplied these different style of screw down hose clamps, which I think I'll use. I think they're probably a bit better than this style that I had on there. So when you connect the filter, you want to make sure that you've got it facing the right way. Obviously it's got a little arrow on there to show which way the fuel should flow through it. So the fuel actually flows upwards from the pump. So this is the correct way to orient the filter. The arrow pointing upwards. You want to make sure you do your hose clamps up nice and tight. You really don't want a hose popping off in the middle of a ride. It'll certainly pull you up in a real hurry. So once you've got that all nice and snug, you want to just make sure there's no crap on any bits of it. You don't want any crap going into your fuel tank if possible. So just make sure it's all clean. Now before you go ahead and put the pump back into the tank, you want to make sure the little O-ring on the outlet pipe is still there, and that your O-ring seal for the top part of the pump is still in place. Now the best way to get the pump back into the tank is to use gravity, just to let the pump drop into where it needs to be. It can be a bit of dicking around, but it's generally not too bad. So you want to keep the tank level so that it drops down where it needs to be, and when you get it close to where it needs to be, it's just a matter of shaking it around a bit and it should just pop into place. Then you can go ahead and put the cap and the outlet hose back on. Just stir them up finger tight for now, making sure of course that both the little O-rings are still there. And you can screw the top bit of the pump into place with the 4 screws and the 6mm socket. You really don't want to over tighten these little screws either, it will strip out that plastic pretty easily. That done up, you can use your 17 and 13mm spanners to tighten these two guys up. You don't want to over tighten it, but you want to make sure that your outlet hose is facing the same way it was when you took it off, so spin it around till it's facing sort of back and in a little bit. Now we can go ahead and refit the fuel tank to the bike, making sure you don't foul any of your accelerator cables or anything like that. What I'm going to do now is just put some fuel in the tank and make sure there's no leaks around the outlet pipe or anything. And you can reattach the quick disconnect fuel line. Make sure it's clean too. I'll give you as a tip too, put a little bit of grease around the O-ring. Makes it a lot easier to disconnect that next time. And just reconnect the fuel line. Connect up your breather hose to the frame and the power for the fuel pump. Now I'm just going to turn the engine over a bit to activate the fuel pump, make sure it gets pressure. Okay, finally we can go ahead and put the 3 bolts back to hold the tank on. Chuck your seat back on. And that's it, folks. Job done. Now I probably should make sure it's going to run, hey. Oh, beautiful. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon. Feel free to focus, hey.